Thanks for coming on the podcast, Ash. You've came from Leicester today, yes?
Yes, from Leicester today.
Perfect. So just for anybody watching, just tell us briefly in a synopsis what you do.
I'm an accountant that helps small and medium businesses and individuals.
Tell me a wee bit about your journey as to how you ended up becoming an accountant.
Journey into accountancy, that would have to begin from my early childhood, where my father was a shopkeeper. My father was one of the founding directors in Crown Crest, the cash and carry group, which ultimately ended up owning Pound Stretcher Group, the family business. And throughout my young life, I was often greeted and met with auditors, and that's where the head towards accountancy had initially come into.
Your background experience in dealing with auditors, seeing them coming in,
is what
led you to ending up becoming where you are today.
I initially wanted to persevere law. I've got an interest with the legal side, and I think personally they both mix, because I often find them doing legal stuff, which are general contracts for clients, and that's where it initially started off from, yes. And I did some work experience at a law firm and ended up doing a degree in accountancy.
How many offices have you got?
We've got 3 offices, one in Hertfordshire, one in Uxbridge. I was based in Uxbridge for 14 odd years, and now in Leicester since 2017. And
the Uxbridge office has got a wee story behind it, hasn't it?
It has. It was a derelict property. We were at the Hayes Station. On top of Hayes Station, we were given marching orders under HS2 that they were going to demolish the station and the building around it. And we were asked to leave by the landlord. And we needed a premises just for clients' registered offices. So I'd been watching this derelict property for many years, and it came up in the auction. We ended up acquiring it.
Ever since then, that must have been, or felt like an achievement in yourself that, you know what, we've now got your own building purchased. Or was it difficult at the time raising the money to buy the property at the time, or was it mortgaged? Or
at the time, the property came into an auction, and I'd lost the auction, but a couple of weeks later, I'd received a call from the auctioneer saying, the initial person who'd won the bid failed to follow through. Would we like to acquire it? Yes, it was hard to get the monies together, and the whole building needed redevelopment. It took time to get there. We even had to get Stockley 120-year-old brick to make sure we were in line with the council rules, and we've done it. It's not a huge space. It's a tiny little office, but it's on the Uxbridge Road, and 5,000 cars a day passing it. So I'm an old-fashioned son of a shopkeeper, the grocer, and I believe in the high street.
Is that how you got your first clients? Because when somebody sets up a new business, one of the big things they worry about is how am I going to get customers? What was your strategy of getting customers, and how did it feel when you started bringing them in? Throughout
the day, I'd sort of catch the train into the city and go and do some work at clients and get my usual 150, 200 pound a day in those days. This is like 20 odd years ago. And then run back, and my wife used to manage the office, and we'd have walk-ins, whether they were small tax returns or a small and medium business, and we'd occasionally have the bigger business. We had a Ford retailer whom we still service today. We had a perfumer in Mayfair. We had the chairman of a very large furniture store, and these were one time we had a walk in with a tax return, very small. And he said, I like your service. I'm going to introduce you to someone. He introduced us to someone in Oxford Circus, a big business which was with us for many, many years, and paid us handsomely. Do you have any mentors yourself? Because a lot of small businesses today in 2024, I know a couple of owners of businesses that look to their accountant as their mentor, because they're the guys that have got the financial savvy.
So they look to them. Who would be your type of mentor?
It's a good question. I always find I'm giving advice. I'm always giving advice to the extent that some of my days go in just giving advice, and I've achieved no personal theoretical work or even billing out work other than giving advice, whether those are people who have walked in. And this often happened at our Hayes office, and it happens today at our Leicester office, but I still welcome it. Personally, do I have a mentor? I think accountants as well do need a mentor. Yeah. At the moment, we have got employed consultant. He's advising us on how to go forward into the next phase of accountancy, which is going to be business advisory. And he's working with us for the next 12 months so we can move forward into advisory services.
Talking about advisory, do you find ever that you've come across someone who may have been a client, a smaller business, and they're coming in and saying, look, there's nothing I can do anymore, I just can't make this work. But then you've got suggestions that you may have another client that does similar things, or you give them that input and advice and say, well, actually, have you tried this? Do you come across that a lot?
Very often, yes. It's if I give you the most recent example, it's happened last week. Barbershop franchise with 3 barbershops has come in, and the individual who owns it has come in with a lot of stress, saying they can't make it work anymore. And within a day, we had head bashing, if that's the right word, so sitting around a table. I called in some other associates, and we've got a structure and a plan for them to go forward. Right?
And do you think they'll implement that plan?
They will implement it. One of their focus points, as their example, they couldn't make the overheads work. So I came up with this, rent the barbershop chair out instead, cover the overheads. Anything over and above the excess of the overheads is your profit. So that's the strategy they're going to look at, as well as profit share of the earnings.
What's some of the most common mistakes that you see startups and new founders making when it comes to managing their business finances?
It's ignorance in not getting your systems and compliance addressed. It's saving the pennies and losing the pounds in the long run. The government's been advertising all over billboards, MTD, making tax digital. We've got digital softwares and systems, and businesses need to embrace those.
And how do you think businesses, strike a balance between something like aggressive growth and maintaining some healthy financial practices as well?
Striking the balance between aggressive growth, it's got to be, again, getting data timely. The old-fashioned day of take your books to the accountant a year later in a carrier bag, and sadly, it still happens. Some people are set in their ways, and we see it. And businesses need to move on to the now next phase of tech, if that is the right word, and having data. Even if it's not live, softwares give us live data. If we don't have live data, which is weekly, it should at least be monthly.
So online
solutions,
yes. And you can access online as well, and see things that are happening.
That's right. So we're encouraging the movement to online. We give clients apps where they can take pictures of their receipts. We're not being charged for that at the moment, so we don't charge the clients for those apps. We point clients to where certain banks are even offering free online softwares, save them the subscription fees, save them probably 500 quid a year in those 2 apps alone. So there's no reason not to have them.
And that, I'd imagine, going down that route would actually save, in particular, a new business, costs on their expenditure for an accountant just by being digitally organised and going down that route as well. Am I right in saying that?
Correct, yes, because each entry, the system next time knows that, for example, you've got your mobile telephone bill. it requires a one-time programming of the correct nominal code, correct tax code. The system next time picks it up. So the end user, the client, can themselves be doing the bookkeeping and, yes, save themselves the fees. Hence why the movement toward advisory for accountants in the future.
What advice would you give to any small business in particular? How can they prepare for things like a financial downturn or uncertainty in the future? What's the best way that somebody can prepare for that?
Is there a right word to prepare for that? There's various things we learn, such as the end game principle and business reorganization strategy. I always encourage clients, and I've had clients come to me like this who have been decent sized businesses from up to £2 million in turnover, saying, hey, we're not seeing things right, something's going wrong. So I sat with them and I go through every line by line item cost, and also encourage this to every client, is to minimize your costs wherever you can, and to realign them wherever you can, whether it's rent, if you can find a cheaper premises to rent. You've got a mobile phone contract. Some people I see are paying 100 quid a month, and they could be paying 20 quid a month for the same thing, right? So save costs wherever you can.
Do some research and save where you can,
Yeah.
What's one overlooked tax strategy that small businesses or startups can take advantage of from the minute they set up?
Tax strategy for small businesses. It could be the employer's allowance. The government's offering and gives a 5k employer's allowance against the employer's national insurance tax relief. Some businesses fail to claim it. Some accountants we've seen, and the businesses have switched to us, have never claimed it. There's also the flat rate scheme for VAT, which is a big earner for small businesses, where you can actually properly charge out. You will charge out the same VAT rate at 20%, but you will, dependent upon your business class, pay to HMRC a lower rate, which can be 10%. So the business would gain that 10%, which would go into other income in the business. That's something we can assist businesses with.
How would you approach, tax planning for businesses that might be looking to scale their businesses, whether it just be bigger in the UK, European, or internationally? We often find where you're dealing with SMEs in the UK, looking at the international structure, there'd be issues like AML to encourage, to make sure that those are dealt with. Certain banks don't encourage trading with certain foreign countries. Going back to your question, could you repeat that again, please? How do you approach, helping businesses that are looking to scale internationally?
Scale internationally, it would need a lot more guidance. We have an amazing tax team. We've got professionals in every sector, whether those are encouraging businesses that are looking into development, research, taking advantage of grants that are available in there, tax credits for businesses that are available within those. We can look at things like linked investment structures for businesses which may want to take away profits from the balance sheet without paying taxes, whereby a dividend is declared into another holding company. That holding company can then be utilized for an international company or even further growth.
Okay, cool. Cash flow is king, for a lot of businesses and startups, How would you help, small businesses navigate the challenges, of fluctuating cash flows, especially, in the early stages?
This has got to be data. If businesses take note that, the accountant says, I've got to have my data, I've got to have live data. And I don't mean you've got to have it on a daily basis or a weekly basis, but at least a monthly basis. I get directors calling me up, and we've had a recent coffee chain opened up in London, and the director lives abroad, the investor, and he says, "What's my profit?" And they want key data. Without data, cash flow and an accountant cannot advise.
Data's king.
Yeah.
Get yourself organised.
That's right.
From the very beginning.
That's right.
From day one.
And it's not so difficult. It's not so difficult.
I wouldn't imagine it is with today's technology.
Yeah.
You can, like you said earlier on, you can take a picture of a receipt.
Yeah.
You know, and as long as that information's gathered for you, you can then work with that information, but you can't work with the invisible.
Agreed. We can't work with the invisible.
That takes me on to, can you share a case where a small business financial management's, dramatically changed its course for the better where you were involved? It could be like the coffee shop instance,
I'm actually involved with a hotel group right now, and they employed expensive consultants, and it hasn't really achieved anything. They were external consultants, but they were not accountants. And we often find that we're the ones ending up doing the work in a nice way. We love everybody, but whether we're doing the work for solicitors and consultants, we often find we're doing the work or redoing the work to get things right. And sometimes it's basic, let's get people through the door, let's cut costs where we can. The supplies don't have to be made worse, if that's the right word. You get the same quality, the better bedding sheets, etc. But just shop around
and basically get the best deal.
Get the best deal. So again, it goes down to cost cutting, and it's something I keep saying to clients: is, how are we going to? You've rightly said, cash is king. We're not going to get more and more business. If a hotel has 50 rooms, it's only going to fill those 50 rooms at best. So what's going wrong? It's got to be the cost structure.
It's got to be the cost structure, yeah. Good advice. What's one piece of advice you'd give to entrepreneurs who feel overwhelmed by the complexities of accounting? That could mean anything, someone that's really unsure or whatever. They just feel overwhelmed, especially when it coming up to submitting tax return time. If they're no organised.
Yeah.
What's your advice to them? Because I'm assuming that when you get a client who you can see as a small business, I take it you're watching over them and basically saying, you know what, you could have done this better, or you could have done that better, and bringing them in, giving them advice. I would think that's what I'd like to happen.
You are right. We are watching over clients, and I'm a worrier because that's just the nature, I guess, accountants are, and we probably worry more about the client's business in some regards than they do. And on my way here, I've had about a 2-hour journey, but on the way I called a client, and that client's been with me since about 2008, and he's got about a £3 million turnover business. He does well, he makes profit, but he's so behind with his accountancy and his paperwork. And HMRC have now sent him a letter for getting his affairs in order with an inquiry. And that's bad, because that could be 100% penalty. So we want to avoid all of that.
Is that a case of someone running their business and their accountant is here on the priority list rather than here?
Yeah.
How do you get that guy to realise that the accountant needs to be here and they should be in communication with each other? How do you make that happen?
It's a good question. Sometimes we find, and I had a call about 7 in the evening yesterday, and a client we'd been chasing, which is a big window manufacturing company. We'd been chasing them for months and months, and we've got 12 odd emails on my mailbox saying, where's your records, where's this? It's very difficult. HMRC actually says ignorance is not an excuse in the tax manuals, the books. So they don't accept the old-fashioned days where an accountant would send a letter of appeal are getting harder. We're getting rebunked by HMRC saying, we need more evidence. So let's get our affairs in order. Let's get those data, address it. It's not going to go away, but it's not difficult. And we can assist you to make that work.
Is there a common misconception about accounting, that you often have to dispel for clients, especially new clients?
I don't know what's going on in the client's mind, but perhaps the misconception is we're expensive. But the old-fashioned days of ticking clocks are gone, charge by hours are gone. You have a fixed fee for a set piece of work. Most businesses are streamlined into systems. So you will know this is your monthly direct debit. This is what I'm paying. This is what I'm getting. I'm getting my payroll. I'm getting my VAT returns. I'm getting my bookkeeping reviewed and monthly management accounts, etc.
How do you stay updated, though, with the constantly changing tax laws and regulations? And how do you ensure that your clients are always compliant as well? That must be pretty difficult.
We've got, again, I do tax work and a lot of separate arm to the accountancy. The general run-of-the-mill, let's get your affairs in order, let's get your compliance done, let's get your year-end tax return filed, etc. There's a separate arm which is tax work, and that's to try and stay ahead. Now, in answer to your question, very straightforward, we've got to do 40-odd hours a year of CPD. I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Accountants. I'm a member of the Chartered Certified Institute. I'm a member of AAT. So the three regulatory bodies want to see my annual updates to ensure that I'm up to date with tax planning and matters and what's going on.
What's one challenge you face as an accountant that business owners rarely realise or appreciate?
The challenge I face as an accountant is time. Time is so limited. Our days and the time, it just goes so quick. We can start as early as we can. I know a good colleague of mine is in London. He's an early riser. He'll start at 6 in the morning and he'll work till 10 in the evening. And then he'll switch off in the weekends. But then we often find, in answer to, just answering your question, the critical factor we've got is not being able to give enough time as much as we would like to every client. That
takes me on to a question that I was asked to ask you. A guy I know does Forex trading.
Yeah.
They don't know how the tax works on that. How does somebody in the UK that does Forex trading, how does the tax work on that?
So Forex trading, you'd have you'd be taxed on the gain in a nutshell, right? So if you've gone and invested 10K into Forex trading, and at the end of year one, so 5th of April is going to be the tax return cut-off date. If the individual is invested from half a year or a year, whatever it was, the months before, or even a month before, what is that individual's gain or loss as at the 5th of April? And that's the element that will be taxed on, right? But if following year or even in that year, that individual has made a loss, then that loss relief is carried forward against that same trading activity. It cannot be offset. For example, the individual goes and does antiques trading and he can't go and offset a loss against that with a profit of then. It has to be the same activity.
If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self,
yeah,
if you were just starting out as an accountant, what would it be?
Oh, difficult question. As a younger self, I'd say persevere. There was a time where I moved into commerce and it was an accounting role, it was an FC role. I had an expat job, Land Cruiser car, they paid for my house, etc., paid for the school fees, and I thought I'm not going to ever do another exam. But I ended up years later coming back to ACCA, finishing my remaining 3 or 4 papers. So the answer is persevere and finish it.
These podcasts wouldn't be possible without our amazing sponsors. Make sure you support them too and check out their website. At Tax Solvers, we help you focus on growing your business, not worrying about the numbers. Whether you're a contractor, SME, or sole trader, our expert team is here to guide you through the complexities of the tax system. With tailored solutions and software, we simplify your accounting and help optimize your finances. Let us handle the details so you can focus on what matters. Get in touch today at taxsolvers.co.uk and discover how we can support you.
Now I want you to talk to me, because we had a conversation before we came on the podcast about your journey, and you've came from nothing, and you're here today. You've got 3 offices, you've got staff, you're helping businesses and people, that maybe turn over millions of pounds. But for a very humble man, tell me about the British Asian Trust dinner and who you were sat near.
So it was an invitation by host at the time, Prince Charles, and it was part of the charity work I've been doing for some years, where the business used to get monies and interest. I'd sort of put it aside and I'd make sure it all goes to charity and then top up. So as part of that, a friend who's a senior person in charity world, he invited me to this, and I was sat a few tables from today's King Charles, and it was a great honour and to be there. It was a sense of achievement. I've also had an invitation to the House of Lords along similar to this for charitable work.
Tell me a wee bit about your charitable, what you've been doing.
Of recent, we went with a very known charity. We went to Turkey. We raised about 70k for refugees there, the Uzbek refugees. We met with orphan kids, and I took my son with me, and I wanted him to learn and to see a world and to appreciate what we have. So in January 25, I'm planning to go with another charity, and we're planning on taking 400 Palestinian refugee kids from Jordan to take them for Umrah.
You've given me great insight into tax and accounting, which I know is going to help anybody watching this. It's going to help you businesses. And it just shows that you can come from humble beginnings and end up doing a lot of charity work and ending up sitting a few feet away from King Charles and raising tens of thousands of pounds for charity. And just hats off to you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Do you know what? I admire you. Admire anybody that's walked that walk. You've certainly walked that walk, and I wish you all, the future success that can come. And I hope maybe in a year's time we can have a follow-up interview and see where things have led you with your charity work as well.
I'd love to. Personally, I always feel I've underachieved in life. As maybe I'm beating myself up, but I always feel I've underachieved. I remember starting up my office, and I briefed you that got my desk for 20 quid from eBay, and the Princess Youth Trust, this is in 2002, gave me a PC. So I owe back more to society than what I've got.
Well, to me, you've done a lot more than a lot of people, and do you know what? Again, I admire you for it, and on behalf of everybody in the UK and everybody you've helped and the money you've raised, thank you very much. And listen, thanks for coming on the podcast. We've done 30 minutes, and that's what we aim for.
Thank you very much.
And you've done well, so thanks for coming on, and hopefully catch up again soon.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Cheers.